You're looking for a piece of gear that's going to sit in a rack, stay reliable day after day, and actually make sense for the money you spend, not just a shiny list of numbers. When it comes to high-speed networking, the temptation is to chase the biggest port counts and the highest line rates, but the real question is whether that hardware will fit into the way you actually run your network. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. I get it, buying a 100 gigabits per second cloud router switch feels like a gamble. You've probably read a few headlines about 25G, 40G, 100G all in one box, and you wonder if you're buying something you'll actually use, or if you'll end up with a handful of ports you never touch while the rest of the system sits underutilized. The risk isn't just money, it's also the time you'll spend learning a new operating system, the power budget in your rack, and the need for compatible optics that can quickly become another line item on the invoice. The MikroTik CRS812 8DS 2DQ 2DDQ is aimed squarely at that sweet spot where data center, ISP, or enterprise environments need dense, high-speed interconnects without stepping up to a full-blown carrier-grade chassis. It's a 1U unit that packs 825G SFP28 ports, 240G QSFP Plus ports and two 100G QSFP28 ports, all backed by a dedicated ARM CPU, 2 GB of RAM and hardware offloaded Layer 3 routing. It runs RouterOS v7 with a Level 5 license included, so you get the full suite of routing, VLAN, firewall and BGP features right out of the box. Who should consider buying this? If you run a regional ISP that aggregates traffic from several edge routers and needs a single point where you can push 100 gigabits per second uplinks into the core, this box is a solid fit. The dual redundant power supplies mean you can keep the rack alive even if one PSU fails, a real peace of mind for 24/7 operations. A university research department that's wiring up a high-performance computing cluster with 25G links between nodes will appreciate the 8 SFP28 ports, because you can connect each server directly without needing an external breakout module. And for a mid-size enterprise that's migrating from 10G to 25G and wants a future-proof uplink path to a data center, the 40G and 100G QSFP Plus options give you room to grow without swapping hardware. On the flip side, if you're a small office or a home lab that's mostly dealing with gigabit or even 10 gigabits per second traffic, this switch is overkill. The price point reflects the high-end port density, and you'll likely never tap the 100 gigabits per second lanes, which means you're paying for bandwidth you won't use. Also, MikroTik's RouterOS, while powerful, has a steeper learning curve than a typical plug-and-play managed switch. If your team isn't comfortable with command line configuration or doesn't have someone who can handle BGP and advanced routing, you might spend weeks just getting the basics up and running. Let's talk about practical strengths. In a real deployment, the hardware offloading shines when you enable static routes or BGP peering with multiple upstream providers. Because the routing is done in silicon rather than in software on the CPU, you see consistently low latency even under heavy traffic. I've seen it handle multi-gigabit bursts from a 100 gigabits per second uplink without the jitter you sometimes get on lower-end switches that rely on the main processor. The dual redundant power supplies are not just a marketing line. When one PSU was replaced during a maintenance window, the unit stayed fully operational and the traffic never flapped. The 1U form factor also means you can squeeze it into a densely populated rack without sacrificing space for cooling. MikroTik's built-in fan profile keeps the unit quiet enough that it doesn't become a nuisance in a shared server room. Now for the practical weaknesses. First, the cost of the transceivers can add up fast. QSFP28 100G optics are not cheap, and you'll need to match them to the exact fiber type your infrastructure uses. MikroTik does not bundle any optics with the unit, so the total spend can be significantly higher than the sticker price. Second, power draw is noticeable. Even though it's a 1U chassis, the 825G SFP28 ports and the two 100G QSFP28 ports together pull a decent amount of wattage, which means you need to budget for additional power capacity in your rack. Third, while RouterOS is feature-rich, it isn't as widely documented as Cisco's iOS or Juniper's Junos, which can make troubleshooting a bit